Welcome back to the PI show. We've just been discussing some court cases in Victoria about personal injuries, and we had some disagreement about Humphries and Poljak and what's happened. Since then, Tony, there's been a lot of cases about who's got a serious injury, what is a serious injury, because it's a gateway, a pathway, a hurdle you've got to get over in Victoria to be able to sue for negligence against your employer. It's a pretty high barrier.
Well, Harry, it's employer and car accidents. That's serious injury.
Well, serious injury is both, employer and car accidents.
Yep.
And
the definition's slightly different in work because I think they put the word permanent at the end of the definition.
Yeah. But the courts, since 1991, lots and lots of cases have discussed serious injury. What is a serious injury? We're just talking about one case that was recently decided by, I think, a 24-year-old truck driver unloading a box. His mate who was helping him slipped, the box fell, injured his back. He sort of got back to work for a few months,
tried different jobs,
and then was struggling, was really struggling. The court said, the insurance company said, look, this is a modest injury. He's 24, 25, 26. It's a modest injury. He's going to get up. He'll be okay. What happened in court?
Well, he went before the County Court of Victoria and he got a serious injury certificate for pain and suffering and also loss of income. And how's
he lost income?
I subsequently settled that case.
But how's he lost income?
Well, what they did was the court had to look at the issue of whether he's going to have 40% loss of income into the future. And what they do is there's a silly form. I say silly because it's what they look at is you got 3 years before you got injured, 3 years after.
But he's
and
only,
they take your
only,
best position.
He's only
in terms
24.
Of, yeah, well,
so
okay, being 24, you don't have to apply that formula. What the judge has got to look at is what best reflects this person's income capacity. Like in this case, I think the judge accepted that he could have earned up to $32,000. So he's got to lose 40% of $32,000 to get a certificate for serious injury for loss of income.
And the judge, accepted that he just...
She accepted that?
Yeah. He couldn't work?
I think she accepted he couldn't do any manual work. Oh, the insurance company in this case also identified X number of jobs they think he could be doing, which were supposed to be sedentary, but she commented about his intellect and lack of education and things like that.
He left school in the middle of year 11.
Yeah,
he struggled at school. He was doing sort of horticultural gardening things, and he just was a real battler. And I think, I don't know, the judge sort of saw that he was a battler.
Well, she said he couldn't do any of the jobs identified by the insurance company's occupational therapist.
Yeah, but what could he do?
Well, I mean, he's young.
What could he do?
Realistically, you'd think that he could do something.
He's going to get back into the workforce, isn't he?
Yeah, you'd think so.
So, did the judge get it wrong?
No.
Oh.
The case was presented like that.
The judge got it wrong?
No, she didn't. I think she got it right because the way the case was presented, on all the evidence, he couldn't do any of the jobs that were put up. The experts said that. The doctors said that. She just adopted what the experts said.
He had a back injury. I think there's a small sort of disc prolapse in the back.
Pretty significant for him.
Is that serious?
It is serious.
Why?
I dealt with this bloke. He was on the phone to me nearly every day.
But why is it serious?
It's serious because it was affecting his day. He was on a lot of medication. There was some suggestion he might need surgery in the future. In fact, one of the doctors did want to operate, but he was worried about it because of his youth. He wanted to wait and see what happens. And also affected not only his enjoyment of life, but also work. He had to give up his job. He stopped working. And mind you, one of the jobs he did take up was with his brother as a greenkeeper, doing part-time work.
Part-time work.
So there was family love involved.
But, I mean, what... But, so you say it was the judge got it right.
I think the judge got it right, yeah.
And the case settled. But, I mean...
it settled for about $280,000, I think. It wasn't a big settlement because, it wasn't one where the insurance company paid him for total loss of income.
He could do something.
Yeah.
Because he was young.
It was a partial loss.
Because
We'd probably assessed it at about 50% of the 32,000.
All right. Well, look, that's one case out of many where a young man, he injures his back and he ultimately succeeds in getting some compensation from.
But we keep saying this. The key to it is that the injured person, whether it's a car accident, work accident, should consult a lawyer. That's expertise. That's an expert in this area, because they think that the injury is trivial. However, you've always got to look at the consequences. That's the key to these cases. Look at what effect it has on your life in general.
I think we've got a...
yeah, we've actually got an example of a fellow
quite a few inquiries, but you've highlighted one from
I've got
Dan.
one, a young fellow called Dan wrote in about his relation who has got a serious injury certificate. He's 45 years of age, he's a builder, and he wants to know what his case is worth. He's been to a mediation, which is a pre-settlement conference, a pre-trial conference, to try and resolve the matter, and he couldn't settle it. He wants to know what his uncle's worth.
But I mean, isn't it a lottery?
Not really, because it comes back to medical evidence as to what he can and can't do. What he wants to know is what is the case worth in terms of pain and suffering and loss of income. Now, you've got to go to the medicals. No, you can't just pluck a figure. No, you've got to look at his age. 45, you've got to look at the issue of whether he needs surgery. There's ranges for these cases, Harry. I mean, we look at past court cases.
Can he work? Can't he work?
Well, in his article to me, he says that he doesn't think he'll work again.
Ever again?
Well, it's a big statement. I mean, he's still got 25 years of work ahead of him. I think what he's saying is that he can't do any heavy work. So
he's a labourer on a building site.
What you've got to look at is what could he possibly do that's sedentary. I think that's one of the things you've got to look at.
Can he be retrained?
That's an interesting question. You've got to go to an occupational therapist, physician, and see what he says, but...
Might be able to be retrained.
It's an interesting case. If there's surgery, who knows, a couple $100,000 maybe for general damages. If you can't work at all, there's a multiplier. Which is the present value of the dollar. You got to.
That's weird. What? It's all maths, is it?
There's a bit of maths. What happens is
sounds like Chinese algebra.
Well, you got actuaries that bring the dollar back
like Chinese
to the present
algebra
value.
to me.
Yeah, they bring the dollar back to the present value.
Sounds very complicated. But look, finally, we're just closing on a note where there's a lot of change in this area, but the Victorian government has recently announced some changes to work cover. The way I look at it is they've increased what I call the no-fault benefits. They've made it a bit more generous to workers. So I think that's good. But
I don't think there's been much change in that report, Harry. It's called the Hanks Report. I just think they spent a bit of time looking at the system, consulting various people, lawyers, stakeholders, all sorts of people, and...
But the Victorian government's at least done a little bit to help injured workers, and it's sort of going in the right direction.
Well, Harry, I think the biggest thing they did was to bring back common law rights.
Originally, in 2001. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you for watching the PI show. We'll be back next week. And don't forget to send any queries to our website. We're happy to look at all queries and try and answer some questions. Thanks for watching.